it feels like yesterday night was a never-ending night, and we're going to start a new world order. An interesting time is expecting us ahead. But we have a dream, and that's, I guess, good news. I wanted to go in the first 20 minutes before we start with the actual challenge discussions to tell you a little bit what happened with the dream challenges since the last conference to today. So a little bit of a recap. This is the 9th time that DREAM and the regulatory adjustment system genomics groups and conferences are doing it together. We started in 2008 at the Broad Institute, and we were in Boston, New York, Barcelona. We should go back there. And then we went to San Francisco, Toronto, San Diego, Philadelphia, and today we are here in Phoenix. This is, as I said, the 9th. We plan to continue with this, but there are discussions also whether we should have other workshops in different conferences. We'll discuss that a little bit later. The RECOMB and RECOMB Systems Biology and Regulatory Genomics, we have, this is swapped. Christina Leslie and Saurabh Sinha were the chairs of the Regulatory Genomics, and Gregoire and Mike Behrens of Systems Biology. I also co-chair the whole conference. For the meeting logistics, we were helped by Belle Hanson, Elise Blaze, and Diane Kovacs. Some of you have been throughout the previous, 2 days, and if you count Cytoscape, 3 days. We have had, and we will have, 8 keynote speakers, 48 oral communications, 107 posters, 1 election during these days. And in DREAM, we have about 3,400 registrant participants and 529 participating teams, and these numbers keep increasing over the years. We had basically 2, 4, 6 challenges that have been going on, finished, or we are still seeing activity in them. One of them is the ENCODE DREAM Challenge, that we will have a session today, and some of the best performers are with us. The Disease Module Identification Challenge. The Disease Module Identification finished. The ENCODE DREAM Challenge will continue. The people that were invited to come here won what we call the leaderboard phase, but now there will be a final phase that people are still working on to make the predictions for the final phase. The Digital Mammography DREAM Challenge is ongoing. Some of you may know about it, but if you don't, we will have a talk later today. We also have the Somatic Mutation Calling, Heterogeneous Tumors Challenge, the Respiratory Viral DREAM Challenge, and also we will discuss today a challenge that ended a little bit earlier, which is the AstraZeneca Drug Combination Prediction Challenge. So a lot of activity, a lot of people, and here are a few of the numbers. It's a busy table, but let's look here. The total number of registered users in all this challenge was about 3,384, but of course not everybody who registers eventually participates. To have a sense of how many teams participated, we have 529 participating teams. We don't have final submissions in some of them, for example, the respiratory viral, for reasons that we will discuss later, and the digital mammography is ongoing. But basically, we have a healthy number of teams that have participated throughout the whole globe. As usual, just to reinforce, the mission that we have in DREAM is to foster benchmarking of scientific algorithms. That means scientific rigor when it comes to assessing of our algorithms, but also collaborative science, also open science, data democratization, and acceleration of research. And for all that, we need to work with the community as an open effort. And we have over the years and systematically now helped complement some of the NIH or NSF or other funding agencies grant proposals of some of the members of our community, just to provide DREAM as a means of outreach for some of the projects that are proposed. So this will continue to be so. I hope that you see in DREAM a good partner to use as an outreach, for example, in education, in data sharing, and so on and so forth. A few of those are the NSF Career Award that Anthony Gitter got recently, and the NCI CSBC Data Coordination Center awarded to Sage Bionetworks, in which challenges are part of the outreach that they proposed. We had a number of workshops throughout the year, which I think it was an interesting way to focus our attention on some particular challenges. For example, in June, the team that did the drug combination challenge, distinguished members of which are here in front, in the front row, went to Boston and presented the results of the challenge and discussed some of the methods used in the interesting named Microsoft Nerd Center, right? The team that did the olfaction prediction challenge went to the Association for Chemoreception Sciences and presented a session there where the results of the challenge were discussed and the best performers were invited to present. There were a couple of hackathons, one pertaining to the digital mammography challenge, and that took place in Montreal in July, and there are very nice photos. People seem to have had a lot of good fun. The digital mammography challenge, if you haven't looked into it, is a very interesting data-intensive challenge, and these people in Montreal try to get acquainted with the data, with what we call the pilot data, and they had a number of analyses that they did there, and it was fun to see how they struggle in order to deal with this data, and we start to see that people can really, in internal dry runs for these challenges, we're starting to see that there is signal in the data, which is great. There is this is also one of those challenges in which there was a grant that was written about 3 years ago by one of our dreamers, Jeffrey Siwo. He was a student in Notre Dame University, and he had won a couple of challenges. He said, he consulted with me. I went there and gave a talk to his advisor. They decided to write a grant to try to get data to disentangle the gene regulatory network of Plasmodium falciparum, which is the parasite that causes malaria, and in order to eventually do a challenge that allows us to understand a little bit better how to do drug combinations with artemisinin, which is the drug of choice for malaria, but that in many regions there is resistance to this drug. So the idea, so he got the grant, which he wrote as a student, and now he is working for IBM Africa, trying to launch this challenge amongst other things, and he created an interesting hackathon in which they had, in September, in which we had 20 participants from 8 different African countries, and those are the happy people there. And we are planning to do this, to launch this challenge a little bit later, maybe mid-2017, an interesting challenge of drug combinations as well. We're always thinking about using DREAM as a means to help educate new generations in how to do science rigorously, you know, and trying to understand how to do it collaboratively and so on. And so we launched also out of NIH-sponsored Big Data to Knowledge grants, what we call the Dream Challenges Academy, which is basically get people in the biomedical research, students, that don't necessarily have the training in data analysis, statistics, machine learning, and so on, to learn a number of tools and techniques in this field and eventually participate in one of the challenges. And so we did a first run of this. We will continue to do this in the next couple of years. So, you know, this was a challenge that had a hiccup. Some of you know the challenge that we used for this was the respiratory viral challenge. But however, the students, I think, from feedback from them, had learned something. Probably you can tell us later whether you learned anything. But the idea is good, I think, is to use a challenge as an excuse to teach students a number of tools and then apply in a challenge and see how they do against others and how they do in blind predictions. There is also, I recently heard at the Helmholtz Institute in Munich, a course that is being organized around the prostate cancer Dream Challenge. So there is a number of educational efforts around challenges that I think we would like to see more of it, and we would like to help you guys if you are planning to use Dream Challenges in your educational endeavors. A professor from MBA, Master of Business Administration, graduate program at Ariel University in Israel, asked to have a number of surveys that we have done, and probably we will bug you with answering some surveys in order for us to understand a little bit more how we can serve this community a little bit better. But they analyze it using tools from their science and art. And they came to more or less reasonable conclusions that I want to read to you. But this is the work of one of their students that is using this for her PhD. And so they found that the major motivation for participation in this kind of prizes is doing good. That means an altruistic factor, and the exposure factor, the possibility of come and share the work that the participants do, especially when they are in their earlier stages of their career. And the main success factor, according to them, is the fact that people work in teams. Typically, winners come from teams that are more than 2 members, not always, but often, and have prior knowledge and familiarity with the context of the contest, which I think is a very interesting conclusion. We have seen that over and over. And the availability of support provided by the contest administrators and the platform to allow them, you know, we try oftentimes to answer as fast as possible the questions that you guys write in the forum, but sometimes we're a little bit slow. Sometimes we are prompt, but usually we try to do it with a great sense of responsibility. So we have published several papers. So in 2016, we started the year publishing this paper on inference of causal networks in signaling networks. And we also got this beautiful cover in Nature Methods. This cover is an interesting one. I mean, I need to explain it to you if you are not familiar with this idea. Plato has this idea that we go about in the world not really understanding or seeing the reality, but actually seeing the shadows of the reality that we are immersed in. We cannot really see everything. And so here there are the participants of the Dream Challenges trying to infer the real network, if there were one, but just looking at the shadows that are projected by the data that was present. It's a beautiful idea. I don't know whether people really understood it that read it, but I think this is Mysteriously, this was accepted as a cover in Nature Methods, and we are pleased with that. We also had the results of the anti-TNF treatment response in rheumatoid arthritis challenge, published recently in Nature Communications. The AML prognosis challenge was published in PLOS ComBio. The Alzheimer's disease challenge was published in Alzheimer's and Dementia. We had a very old challenge from 2010, interestingly published this year. This is sometimes happens, you know, when we have too much to do and we don't really rapidly. This is a good reason to try to, you know, finish a challenge and publish the paper, right? This was an epitope. You know, the prediction of which epitopes bind to some IgV immunoglobulins. We also published this review paper in Nature Reviews Genetics, and they were kind enough to also propose, you know, produce this cover that was the cover of the issue. We also have a paper in press for the prostate cancer challenge in the Lancet Oncology, which is a great clinical journal. And we have a paper and the review in Science. I don't want to say which paper, not to jinx it, but which is a big deal for us, because, you know, usually when you send to these big journals, they say, okay, thank you, but we don't want it. But, you know, the fact that it went through the process of editorial acceptance is already, as many of you know, a big step into acceptance. Our paper on ALS, the first ALS challenge, was chosen as one of the papers in the history of computational biology published in Nature Biotechnology. So there was a lot of recognition for some of the work that we did. By the way, yesterday in the top 10 papers, the Nature Methods paper, the causal inference, was inducted into the best 10 papers of last year. There was a lot of, not a lot, but some interest from the media with respect to some of the efforts that we follow. For example, in the Columbus Dispatch in Ohio, recently there was an editorial done on the digital mammography challenge, and we had also articles dealing with crowdsourced solutions that were discussed in Nature, in commentary articles in Nature, and different, you know, even in Spanish we have one. Different media took different challenges that they were interested in and wrote some articles on them. More here. Okay, so thank you to our sponsors, the sponsors for our conference, Sanofi and Recursion. Probably some of you saw the talk that one of the founders of Recursion gave yesterday. Also IBM Research, Sage Bionetworks, WeGreen.com, and Elsevier. And F1000 Research, that is our partner journal that is very interesting in publishing all the papers that result from methods that were developed in trying to solve the challenges, methods that could be the best performers or not. They don't care, which is the great thing to have. Really, if you want to publish your method, F1000 Research is a good place, because we have a dream challenge where we put all the challenge methods together, and, you know, in aggregate, the value of this collection of papers becomes a little bit more valuable. So also many thanks to the many organizers of the different challenges. You know, there is, at this point, some of you have participated in several challenges, but you know that this challenge is really, like someone said, it takes a village, really. It's a hard thing to organize. There's a lot of moving parts that we have to take into account. So I don't have time to thank all the organizers, but in the challenge pages, there is the list of organizers. Without them, and many of them work really, you know, giving generously their times, really without compensation. This is a great effort And we appreciate very much their work. Thank you to the many challenge organizers. Also, thank you to the many teams that participate. Without these teams, DREAM wouldn't exist. And this is the group of people that are the core of DREAM, the DREAM directors, from several institutions: Bruce Hoff from SAGE, Jim Costello from University of Colorado, Julio Saez Rodriguez from Aachen, Justin Guiney from SAGE, Lara Mangravitz, SAGE, Laura Heiser, Oregon Health and Science University, Pablo Meyer, IBM, Paul Boutros, Ontario Institute for Cancer Research, Mike Kellen from Sage BioNetworks, Stephen Friend, now in Apple from Sage BioNetworks, and Thea Norma, now in the Gates Foundation, also from Sage earlier. Thank you very much to all these folks. Without them, we couldn't do any of this, and also these folks help create a strategic direction for where we go with DREAM. Okay, we're coming to the top of the hour, which is when I will introduce our first invited speaker. The organization of the day is going to be basically in the morning session. We are going to have discuss the AstraZeneca DREAM drug combination challenge, and in the second part of the morning we are going to discuss the challenges that are coming and the challenges and some that are ongoing, and discuss the status as well as coming challenges that we are planning for next year. Then we finish the morning with a great keynote speaker, Zach Cohane. In the afternoon, we'll discuss other challenges. We'll discuss the disease module challenge, the somatic mutation calling heterogeneous tumors challenge, the ENCODE challenge, and we'll also have in the last session our second keynote speaker, Shiping Wang from UMass. Then everybody should be very relaxed in a reception with pizza and beer. And at the end of the conference, we'll try to go all together, everybody who cares to join us for drinks to some nice places that are in Phoenix where we can relax and finish the day. So with that, I will invite Jonathan Dry from AstraZeneca to give us a perspective of why we have done the AstraZeneca DREAM Challenge on drug combinations. Jonathan is a staff member in AstraZeneca and has been instrumental in having this challenge organized and for it to happen. So, Jonathan.